Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with a video.
I love my wife, and there's no doubt about it, but she's sort of obsessed with her elder sister, and this has affected our relationship a lot. We got married almost a year ago, and my wife's sister has not left our side since then. She's divorced and currently dating a guy and has an army of 5 kids who do not know how to keep calm. I had proposed to my wife, and my sister-in-law told her that she was not going to approve of me as she did not find me suitable for her. My wife tried to convince her and made me see her multiple times to talk to her. She would ask silly questions, and I got the idea that she was a crackhead. We somehow managed to get her approval, which was not at all required, but my wife could not decide without her sister, and this had ignited several arguments between us. I loved her so much and could not step back because of her sister. We got married and my sister-in-law followed us to our house with her 5 kids and told her that she was staying for a couple of days as we might need her help. She acted very nice and would prepare meals, clean the house, and look after everything, but her kids would run around the house and would break anything breakable. This turned my house into a circus, and instead of relaxing, I got exhausted. My sister-in-law stayed for a couple of days and then went back to her place. It was such a relief to bid her farewell, but I knew that she was not going for long. My wife told her sister that we were planning our honeymoon, and she suggested to us a list of places. She seemed very excited and wanted to know every detail. When we told her about the destination we had decided, she said that she always wanted to go there but could not. We told her that we wished that she would get to go there one day and close the discussion in the group chat. The next day she was at our place and announced that she was going with us. I told her that it was our honeymoon and not a random trip, so she could not come with us. She told my wife how much she longed to see that place and how unlucky she felt as she never got to visit that place. My wife told her that we would think about it and stunned me because we could not even think about it. My sister-in-law left and I asked my wife how she could even allow someone to go with us on our honeymoon. She told me that it was not someone and her sister who deserved to be happy and she could go with us. I told my wife that there was no chance that her sister was going with us. My wife tried to convince me and I told her that we would take her sister with us on some other trip, but the honeymoon was meant for us only. My wife got convinced and apologized to her sister, who got upset and hung up the call. A couple of days later, my sister-in-law visited us again and asked if she could stay at our place while we were away on our honeymoon. We told her that we would tell her if she could stay or not once we had finalized the plan. My wife told me that I had to agree to this as I had already hurt her by not taking her with us on our honeymoon. I could not say anything but was scared that my sister-in-law's kids were going to turn my house upside down in a matter of a few days. We told my wife's sister that she could shift to our place while we would be away on our honeymoon. She didn't even wait for us to leave and arrived the next day with all her stuff and kids. We left for our honeymoon 3 days later, and when we returned, nothing was in its place. My sister-in-law's kids had turned the whole house into a huge mess. It took us a week to clean it up and put everything back in place. We were invited to a dinner party as a couple, and my wife could not stop herself from telling her sister about it. My sister-in-law told my wife that she was also going with us. When my wife told me about it, I told her that it was impossible, and she had to understand that only we were invited as a couple. When my wife told her sister that she could not go, she asked us if we could take her kids with us. I was stunned. I could not understand what sort of a person she was. I told her sternly that only we were invited and no one else was going. This made her upset, and she told us that she would never bother us again. We went to her with a cake after attending the dinner party to make up. My sister-in-law later revealed that she was pregnant and too sick to care for her house and children. My wife became agitated and asked if she could move to our house because it has 2 stories during her pregnancy. I told her that I would never let her sister stay in my house and that if she was so concerned, she could go and stay with her. My wife has gone to visit her sister and is not returning my calls or texts. I'm currently stuck. I went to my sister-in-law's place and talked to my wife. I tried to make her understand that our married life was already being affected because of her inclination towards her sister. I told her that she was rightly worried for her sister, but that never meant that she would not care for anyone else. I convinced her to come back with me. We got home and were having our dinner when my wife started by saying that she could not leave her sister alone and what was the problem if she moved in with us too in the upper story. I told her that I was not used to living in loud sounds and her sister's kids were not chill at all. They would literally run around like crazy and would break everything that would come in their way. My wife told me that we could restrict them to the upper story and she could not leave her sister alone because her sister's kids were noisy. I kept telling her that I could not stay in the same place with those kids. My wife told me that she had an idea, and it was that I could move to my sister-in-law's place and she could come to my house until her delivery. I was shocked to hear that. My wife went on and said that as I did not want to stay with the kids, I could easily stay at my sister-in-law's place while both the sisters could stay together at my place because my sister-in-law's apartment was a single bedroom and could not accommodate that many people in this way so that my wife would be able to take care of her sister. I did not say anything, so there was apparently no problem with that. But why would I leave my place for someone else? I decided not to argue and I just went to my room. The next day, when I returned from my office, my wife had packed my stuff and asked if there was anything else I wanted to take with me. I told her that we had not decided yet, to which she replied that I take too much time to decide things and she could not wait. She told me that her sister was on her way with her stuff and I could leave once that family was here. I still can't believe this, and I'm waiting for my sister-in-law right now. I came to my sister-in-law's place as my wife had switched our houses, but I could not let that happen. I did not want to create any scene at that time, but I thought I had to take a stand and tell them that they could not make me do whatever they wanted to. I decided to file a report against my sister-in-law for trespassing my property and against my wife for assisting her. 2 days later, I went to the police station and I filed a report. I told the cops about the entire situation and asked them to remove all of them from my house. The police went to my house and told my sister-in-law that she was supposed to leave ASAP, and also got my wife out of my place. My wife could not believe that I had reported against them and went with her sister to her place. I didn't try to talk to her and let her go because she had to decide for whom she actually cared. I unpacked my stuff, arranged it, and I had to clean the whole house as the kids had ruined it in just 3 days. My wife called me and told me that I was the worst person in the world, and she never imagined I could be that insensitive. She told me that it was the reason her sister was not approving me for marriage, as she had sensed that I was not responsible at all. I yelled at her and told her that enough was enough, and if it was her sister only who mattered to her, why did she even get married? I told her that she could only come back if her sister understood that she had to respect the boundaries. My wife didn't contact me for a few days and then called to ask if we could meet. I went to see her and told her that I loved her so much and never wanted to react like that, but she pushed me because her sister was just unstoppable. I told her that I wanted her to come back, and she said that she wanted the same. She also said that she would try to draw boundaries and respect them. NTA, OP took so much shit before at last reacting, but that can be justified as he kept trying to avoid his sister-in-law and keep her out of his business, but she did not even know that there was some privacy and limits. I don't get why OP's wife was so dumb and couldn't see that her sister was constantly creating problems. It was OP's wife's duty to tell her sister that she was being nosy and she had to remain out of their lives. NTA, the sister-in-law, was such a bitch. She had no life of her own and wanted to control OP's life by being between them all the time. Why would someone want to go on a honeymoon with a newlywed couple? She then stayed on OP's property and made sure to ruin it. Switching places with OP was ridiculous, and OP's wife agreeing with it was bullshit.
Next story.
I'm a 31-year-old woman, and I've been best friends with my friend who's 34 since I was 15. She's been married to her husband for 5 years. I've never been his biggest fan. Something about him always seemed off to me, but I never once brought it up or told her my feelings on the matter, as I had no reason to suspect he wasn't above board. Sometimes you just don't like people. It doesn't make them a bad person, and I figured it was just that. Due to our connection through her, we do sometimes talk on social media. Not often, but he is on my friends list. 3 nights ago, he made a pass at me, sending some rather flirty messages and commenting about a picture I put up a few hours earlier of myself at the beach with a friend. I was naturally disgusted with this and asked him what the hell he was doing and told him I was his wife's best friend, and then asked if he was drunk. He quickly tried to backtrack and cover his ass, but it was very clear he'd been making a pass from what he'd written. He then begged me not to tell her, at which point I just ignored him. I then screenshot all the messages, saving them, and the next day, first thing in the morning, I called up my friend and asked her to come see me, where I laid it all out for her. I had wanted to tell her in person, as it'd be easier to soften the blow rather than immediately sending all screenshots to her with no easing into it. I expected her to be upset, but I was surprised when she got upset with me. She told me I must have led him on in some way to make him think that kind of message was okay, that he'd never do anything like this without being tempted first. I told her I'd never do that to anyone, last of all my best friend, and I pointed out how clearly disgusted I was by what he'd written. I then told her I was worried because if he'd do this to her best friend, what was he doing with women who didn't know her? She left angry with me and hasn't spoken to me since. We met up that day. I've sent her a few messages since then, but haven't gotten a reply. I hope it's just misplaced anger and she needs time to come to terms with this. I don't know what else I was supposed to do. I mean, surely sitting on this and not telling her would have been even worse. You're so NTA. Your friend is, and it's likely not the first time he's down this to other women and her knowing about it. He's probably always made excuses about it and gaslit her. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm really sorry you have to deal with this, because you honestly did nothing wrong. I would 100% want to know if it were my husband. I really hope she comes to her senses and doesn't end up losing you as a friend, because she'll regret it. As someone who was cheated on for years by my first husband, I'd say NTA. I think you did the right thing, but I also understand her reaction. She loves and trusts her husband, and it's incredibly shocking and heartbreaking to come face to face with literal proof of betrayal. Of course, she doesn't want to believe that he would do this unprovoked. This could be a major turning point in their relationship, and you are the catalyst. She may be upset with you for some time, but hopefully she'll come to realize that you acted out of love for her. Give her some time and some space to sort things out, but it would be good to reach out and see how she's doing.
Next story.
My husband and I have a 12-year-old daughter, Carly. She's an absolutely great kid, and I couldn't ask for better. She's been absolutely great through the global situation, especially when her dad lost his job in aviation. He started as a lorry driver last March, but that is significantly less than our previous income. Carly has some understanding of the situation, but not a full one, because she's only 12. Every year, her school holds a trip for each different year. It takes place at the end of the year, and it's usually given short notice. This year is no different. We were given 3 weeks' notice to hand in the permission slip and payment for the excursion. There have been none since 2019 for obvious reasons. This year, it's to a theme park for my daughter's age group. It was a bit of a shock to us since previous years we were given at least 6 weeks' notice. We had actually started to believe it wasn't happening this year. Carly's birthday is in early July, and we had been saving for that, so we decided to sit down and explain to her that she could choose to go on the school trip or do something with her friends for her birthday. But unfortunately, it wasn't possible to do both. She chose her birthday, but asked why the trip wasn't possible. So I took out pretend money and explained her dad's old income versus it now, and how things had to change. But I also explained that she's a child and she doesn't need to worry, and things will get better again, but for now, money is a bit tight. I didn't tell her any real numbers, just so she doesn't stress. We thought all was well until her teacher called me for a meeting today, and at the time I was like, okay, this is weird. Apparently, the teacher overheard Carly telling her friends about the situation and said it was inappropriate to explain financings and outgoings to a child. To add to that, I put unnecessary pressure on my daughter by forcing her to choose. I was talking to a mom friend of mine about it, and she agreed with the teacher. So, AITA? So NTA. I wish more parents, and specifically my parents, had been more disclosive about money realities. With my parents, it was, no, because I said so. And had they just explained our life situation to me, I was a smart and sensitive child, and I would have been infinitely more cooperative, and I would have learned something important about life early on. This teacher is dead wrong. First, I find it wonderful that you took the time to explain to your daughter the value of money, especially when it's a life skill that she will need. You have given her an education in budgeting, which is extremely relevant and reasonable at 12. What is not appropriate is for her teacher to scold you for your parenting on the topic. While I agree that money matters are an adult concern, you gave her reassurance about the situation, and she is still able to have fun and celebrate. She was simply offered a stake in making a choice between two events, which was honoring her. I see very little difference between this and giving children an allowance and asking them how they would like to budget their finite outcome, except for now, she also understands mom and dad have limited incomes. You gave your daughter a great lesson in sacrifices, prioritization, budgets, and living within your means. Good job, Mom. NTA.